Is the GoPro Hero 10 or the Paralenz Vaquita the better camera for you to capture your amazing underwater adventures on video? That's what the purpose of this mini-series is all about, and in today's second part of it, we'll look at the handling and the usability of these two cameras, specifically for filming underwater. Coming up. Hey there underwater filmmakers, it's great to see you back here on the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in again. In today's second part of the mini-series about the GoPro Hero 10 and the Paralenz Vaquita, we'll look into how good each of these cameras is when it comes to filming underwater in regards to the usability and the handling. Now, if you've missed the first part of this series, it will be linked down below in the video description, as well as the playlist which contains all the individual episodes of this entire series. So you can go down there and watch all the videos and the comparisons that we've gone through during this series if you wish so. I have used both of these cameras quite extensively in the past on different projects that I was filming underwater. So I would say I've got a fair bit of experience with both of them. And in this video, I really just want to share my experience with you guys and basically look at the differences in handling and usability when we talk about using them for filming underwater. One of the major differences in between those two cameras is their area of use. I know we're talking about filming underwater and you can use both of these cameras to capture your underwater adventures. But, for example, the Paralenz Vaquita is a camera, as they say, made by divers for divers, and it is specifically made to be used underwater. So this camera, the Paralenz Vaquita, is not specifically good at doing anything else than taking photos and filming underwater. So using the Paralenz Vaquita on land is probably not a very good idea. The GoPro Hero 10, on the other hand, is a very generic action camera that can be used in a variety of different situations, scenarios and environments. It is meant to be used in as many places as possible, and that's also where this camera shines. Another big difference in between those two cameras is how you use them underwater in terms of activating the recording, going through the menu, all that sort of stuff. The GoPro Hero 10 obviously has that very nice touch screen on the back of it that many people like, me personally as well. I really like how responsive it is. You can go through all the settings, you can set everything up quite easily. That works very well on land. But now, underwater, we can't really use that touchscreen anymore, and that is quite a big limitation in my opinion. Yes, you can definitely find workarounds, and there is ways how you can set up presets inside your GoPro Hero 10 and you can access these presets while being underwater. That works. Having said that though, even with these presets, you cannot be as flexible as, for example, if you could just go into the menu while you're underwater and change every single parameter in there. You're always going to be limited to the presets that you had to define before you go into the water. The Paralenz Vaquita, on the other hand, as we said before, is made specifically to be used underwater, and therefore you can also access and change every single parameter inside the menu while being underwater, and I find that absolutely fantastic and a big advantage compared to the GoPro Hero 10. The way you can change or go through your settings and your menus and change your settings is by just using the lever or lever, whichever way you want to call it, here on the camera, and you can go through every single menu point and set it to whatever you want to have. It seems odd to only have that one sort of button to work your camera underwater, but once you get used to this way of going through the menu, setting up stuff, it works actually very, very well. It does take a little bit of time to get into certain menu points, but it works very well in my opinion. And as I said, I find it a very big advantage to be able to change every single parameter of the camera while being underwater. Because let's imagine if you're down there and you encounter a situation that you weren't sort of expecting, it is going to be difficult to record that situation appropriately if you cannot change the settings to what you really need in that situation. And that's only sort of partially possible with the GoPro when, as we said before, you can set up these presets and then just use one of these presets. And with the Paralenz Vaquita, on the other hand, you will be able to change everything right there and then and be prepared to take the shot that you really want with the settings that you really want for that shot. Now, when we look at monitoring your footage while you're being underwater, I definitely have to say that the GoPro has an advantage there over the Paralenz Vaquita. The GoPro has two screens. The back screen is pretty large in my opinion and gives you a very good sort of idea of what you're capturing right there. And you've also got a front screen and on the GoPro, which is quite nice and handy if you want to take some selfie shots and you can actually see how you're framing yourself inside the shot. The Paralenz Vaquita, on the other hand, only has a tiny little screen, which I wouldn't really rely on too much when it comes to composing my image underwater. The resolution is okay, but it's really difficult to see exactly what you're filming, and I find it very difficult to see whether or not your object that you're filming really is in focus. And that's something that can be a little challenging, specifically if you're shooting something at a sort of closer range, if you get into that sort of minimal focusing distance that the Vaquita needs of around 60 centimeters. It's really difficult to judge by just looking at the screen whether or not your image is in focus. Now, having talked about the screens, there's one thing that I do want to add on here when we talk about the screens, which is that with both cameras, I find it a pity that you can't review your footage while being underwater. The Paralenz Vaquita doesn't allow you to go into a playback mode and have a look at the footage that you've recorded, and even if it did, I think that the screen would just be too small to actually have a good proper look at the footage that you've recorded. With the GoPro Hero 10, that obviously is possible, but you need to be able to access the touch screen to get into the replay mode and have a look at what you've recorded before. And that's not possible as long as the camera sits inside the dive housing. So both of these cameras actually lack the possibility of checking your footage that you've recorded while still being underwater, which I find a shame. I think that would be very useful to be able to just quickly have a look at the shot that you've taken or the sequence that you've taken to make sure that it's all okay. And if it's not, maybe you get a second chance to redo the shot right there and then. Alright, now let's talk about an area where the GoPro really shines, which is in-body stabilization. We all know that the GoPro has outstanding, top-notch in-body stabilization, which is great because using such a small camera underwater, you will get quite a bit of shake, you'll get some micro jitters and all that sort of stuff in your footage. That's very normal, even I get that, and I've been doing this for many, many years. It's just very difficult to stabilize and hold such a small camera very steady when filming underwater. Unfortunately, the Paralenz Vaquita does not have any in-body stabilization to this date. Paralenz has promised to include or update the firmware and include some in-body stabilization in there for quite some time, but they haven't really delivered up until today, which I find a pity. I think that the Paralenz Vaquita is a great camera, but adding the in-body stabilization would make it an even better camera for filming underwater. It is something that puts off a lot of people from investing and getting a Paralenz Vaquita because it doesn't have an in-body stabilization. I get it, especially if you're new to diving and to filming underwater, and if you're still sort of working on your perfect buoyancy, then it's going to be very difficult to get really nice, steady, calm looking shots with the Paralenz Vaquita. There, the GoPro Hero 10 is in clear advantage. I also want to talk about the ergonomics and the form factor of these two cameras. And personally, I have to say that I prefer the form factor and the ergonomics of the Paralenz Vaquita because it is shaped like an underwater torch or a flashlight. It fits very nicely in the palm of your hand, and I never ever really look at the screen while I'm recording. I just hold it like a flashlight, like a torch, and just point it into the general direction of where I want to film. That has worked quite well for me so far, and I'm really enjoying using the Paralenz Vaquita. I also find that this is the most stable way of how you can use the Paralenz Vaquita without any accessories to get the most stable looking footage out of it, because it doesn't have that in-body stabilization. The GoPro Hero 10 on the other hand has the more traditional sort of square shaped form of many other action cams that are out on the market nowadays. It works and it's a proven sort of form factor, but in my opinion I really like the form factor of the Paralenz Vaquita a little better when it comes to filming underwater. And last but not least, build quality, and this is an area where the Paralenz Vaquita definitely shines. The Paralenz Vaquita is made out of aircraft grade aluminum and seems to be, and also is, I've tested it, and also is very sturdy, very robust. It's a camera that can take quite a beating and that is gonna last for quite some time. The GoPro Hero 10 on the other hand has mainly plastic as the main material on the outside and will be much more affected by an impact onto the housing or onto the framing of the camera itself. So if you have the same impact on your GoPro Hero 10 as on the Paralenz Vaquita, I bet that the GoPro Hero 10 is not going to be able to withstand the impact in the same way as the Paralenz Vaquita would. And that is, in my opinion, something worth considering. Just think about how people are on dive boats and how limited the space sometimes is on these dive boats, and how often someone has, you know, just banged something against your equipment. And if you have your camera hanging off a lanyard on your BCD and someone just walks past and bangs that tank against your camera, the Paralenz Vaquita is definitely gonna be prepared better for such an impact than the GoPro Hero 10 would be. And there you have it, guys. That closes our second part of the mini series regarding the GoPro Hero 10 versus the Paralenz Vaquita comparison. Hopefully I was able to give you some insight and share some of my experiences using these two cameras underwater with you. If you got something out of this video, if you find it useful, please do not hesitate to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel so you're not missing out on any future content that will be uploaded here. If you do have any additional questions regarding usability, the handling of these two cameras for capturing your underwater adventures, feel free to put them down in the comment section below and I'll be more than happy to get back to you as quickly as possible. And if you're really serious about improving your underwater videography skills, have a look at my online underwater videography course, Learn to Film Underwater. It will be linked down below in the video description and it is available right now at a discounted rate for a limited time only. Great! Thank you so much for your time and for watching, guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next part of this mini series where we'll talk about accessories for each of these two cameras and how you can pimp those two cameras up to make them even better at filming your underwater adventures. Now go out there and capture those incredible underwater adventures of yours, and I will see you back here next week.